Welcome to Work in Progress, Conversations with Creators. I'm your host, Logan Roy Speitman. On today's program, I have with me Gigi Bella, who's an incredible poet. She's ranked number 10 woman poet in the world, and she just came out with an amazing new book. We had a great conversation. I hope that you enjoy.
If you enjoy our podcast, please like and subscribe and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us bring you more content like this. You can find this episode and all of our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. See the show notes for a discount code on a digital subscription. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading news.
Well, hello, Gigi. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, it's really a pleasure having you on the show. And you have a brand new book of poetry.
I do.
That just came out. Tell us what it's called and what it's about.
So the book is called Without the Frills. It is about the New Mexico film and television industry and my experience with it, working on a few sets. It's also about the importance of telling New Mexican stories and stories of people who have passed on and the many different ways that can look, and kind of the necessary changes needed to happen to make that storytelling equitable. It's also kind of a space to preserve stories of my family that have been here rooted to the land for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And I'm calling it's my New Mexico book. So that's kind of the gist.
Yeah, I think it's and I've read it. It's very good. And, I think with all of your work, it's kind of rooted in your life experience,
Mm-hmm.
You're a poet and you use your imagination, and there's, it's not maybe a one-to-one thing, but a lot of it is autobiographical. And I think working in the film and TV industry, you said this is something kind of new for you, and it was, there were maybe things you didn't expect.
Yeah, totally. I've been a theater performer most of my life, and I've done a lot of music and had my hands kind of everywhere. And film was kind of the last untapped little corner of everything. There were a lot of reasons for that. I definitely had discouragement in that realm from pursuing it. Cameras freak me out a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm much more comfortable on stage. It was just nothing that was ever really the path. And then I decided to take my one-woman show based off of my last book, Big Feelings, to the Edinburgh Fringe in Scotland, which is very expensive.
Mhm.
And I needed to just do any kind of work there was. So I started doing background work on film sets, which I think here is kind of the minimum wage job path. If you're looking for something that's quick and you can submit and they'll call you, that's the deal. And my whole family had done it.
Oh, really?
I had never done it, and they were kind of prepping me for what that would be like. I worked on, I think, 4 sets in total, and was just submitting for calls on Facebook.
Yeah. What was the
Seeing-
first one that you did?
The first one I did was Ransom Canyon.
Ransom Canyon. And then you did
Ransom
Eddington.
Canyon. Yeah, I did Eddington and then Pluribus. I also did some work with Meow Wolf for their Texas location.
Yeah.
And I was just submitting. So you'll see these calls and you just send all your information, your pictures. It's very simple. There's no kind of cover letter or anything.
Right.
You're just saying, this is how tall I am. This is what I look like. I'm available these days. And they break down very specific things that they're looking for. And I had seen a call on Facebook that was looking for people who had participated in protests in the past and who had tattoos or piercings,
Right.
colored hair. And I was like, oh, I fit that.
Sure.
And it was just like any of the other calls. It didn't say what it was for. And that began like a 3-month-ish process of auditioning for Eddington,
Right.
which was insane. As someone who's never done any of this,
Yeah.
just starting from an email from Facebook.
So you were kind of like a featured extra, I guess, in that, right?
I had a named role.
Yeah.
I think things get really, really cut back, and there was a group of us. There were about
Right.
11 of us that were named, and I mean, we the big protest scene in Eddington we shot over the course of 2 days.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that section of the script was about 17 pages long. There were monologues, there were like
Right.
big,
Right.
huge things. And you can see me yelling at Joaquin's character. And I am speaking and saying things, but it's, it's chaos.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
but yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah.
There was a lot of my original improv from my audition that ended up in that script. So I have those pages about protesting the statue of Oñate. I have,
Right.
just a lot of really, and I mean, you get an email saying, "Are you free on Friday to Zoom with your favorite director?"
Yeah.
That's a really amazing thing. So
Sure. Yeah.
when I'm talking about the industry, there's definitely amazing positives too. It's not just a
Yeah,
matter
so
of criticizing.
right. So I think that was a very positive experience for you. Some other experiences not so positive.
Yeah,
So I'm wondering if you want to read one of the poems
sure.
in the book that deals with some of these experiences.
Yeah, so this is more when I was thinking about my experience with film on the whole, why I never did it, why it's kind of elusive for many of us, especially people of color, Chicano people, Mexican American identifying people who live here. I was thinking about a college class that I took called Acting for the Camera. The poem's called Acting for the Camera 201. And I had an experience in that class that kind of put me in my place. So
Mm.
so this is about that. I'm told my type is secondary. Frenchie in Greece, Judy Greer, someone who doesn't speak at all but is supportive, usually of white friends. I'm told I'm too big. The camera can't hold me in 35 millimeters. Is it that? Is their rectilinear straight line confused by the fisheye curve of me, only able to equate my face to something they have to put a border around, not smaller or less, in between their crosshairs, their rule of thirds, my only friends, the boys from Hobbs I eat lunch with. We are grouped together for an assignment, dramatic improv, scenarios to be filmed and watched back. We must do our research. My masticated slip of paper shouts, "Your father is being deported." The professor says, "This is your opportunity to play the lead." Director, a synonym for lily-skinned God, exacting punishment for privilege promises unfulfilled. She said I was made to be next to and never in front. I promised then to be just enough. Sit at the mock lunch table while they megaphone atrocities like devout children of Homeland Security. Well, if he wanted to stay here, maybe he should have just followed the rules, finished his paperwork, behaved like a better citizen. Their words, easily dripping through bared bottom teeth. Blood after a dogfight. I limp away, examine the wounds. One of them says, "We're all good, right?" I mean, it was just pretend, right?
Yeah. I feel like that's so powerful, and you do this thing, I think, in a lot of your work where, like, there's some humor in it
Mm-hmm.
that in some ways maybe the humor is kind of masking the pain or it's a way to cope or something, but it's sort of, you get the pain and the humor as well. And I think also as a poet, you enjoy wordplay and you enjoy doing things. So I just think that maybe talk about that kind of tension between the sort of humor or joy or playfulness and then the like intense pain and reality that you're.
Sure. Yeah. I actually just gave a talk at the traditional medicine conference at UNM, or curanderismo, as we call it in my
Mhm.
field. And I gave a talk about laughter as medicine. And I think that as a people who's endured intense pain, coping is like an umbrella word for the way that we use it. And I think that laughter is a really powerful tool to kind of get somebody to a vulnerable space with you. If you're laughing together,
Yeah.
you're having a moment of connection that's really specific to that moment. I really respect comedians. I really take after comedians, and I
Yeah.
think that there are amazing storytellers, like Mike Birbiglia is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
He'll tell you something crazy about his life, and
Yeah.
he's also coming right back around to a punchline, and it gives you permission to really sink into that heavier thing. So that's part of it for me. It's kind of cultural. I also think all the women in my family were just super funny.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of poems in this book about my grandmother who was in a car accident and she was paralyzed. And my mom used to tell me about how when she was in the hospital, she would always make jokes with the nurses. And she would flirt with the nurses and kind of catch them off guard.
Right.
And that's just the kind of person she always was. I don't think I can stop being funny. That
Hmm.
sounds really pretentious, but it's also just when I'm writing in my own voice.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't realize I'm writing jokes. And in slam poetry's where I started.
Right.
You'll go and you'll read something you've never read to anybody. And I've had many instances where I'll go read something and people will laugh and I'll be like, oh, that's funny. I wrote
Right.
a joke. I didn't realize that's what I was doing.
Right.
But it's just kind of really interwoven into my voice. And I think it's a really powerful way to get somebody to listen who might not
Yeah.
otherwise. People
Yeah.
are drawn in when you're funny.
I think that's totally true. And I had a creative writing professor tell me once, humor in writing, it's she said it's something that it's best if you just kind of let it happen.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing worse than trying to kind of force a joke or something, or like,
Yeah.
and it's like as a writer, you don't have to be funny. Like if you were a comedian, if that's your job,
Right.
you're expected to be funny. And there are comedians, like you were saying, Mike Birbiglia, Hannah Gadsby,
Hmm.
Maria Bamford. I mean, there's a million who kind of their set include, especially now, like there's a lot of tragedy as well. Like not
Yeah.
everything they say is funny. Not
Yeah.
everything's a bit. They tell something that's real, that's,
Well,
but they mix it with that.
there's a poem in the book about Julio Torres's movie Problemista,
Yeah.
which really struck me because he's an absurdist comedian that I really love, and I had never really seen him speak about his cultural background as a Latinx comedian.
Yeah.
But that movie is largely about being a dreamer, being somebody in the country trying to climb the ladder of navigating staying in the country.
Yeah.
And it's really powerful and it's hilarious.
Right.
It's so strange. It's so like totally the world of someone else's mind. But it just struck me completely because the way that he uses it is to explain the hoops we have to jump through as people in this country. Just to be here, it is absurd. It
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
drawn out exactly the way that he thinks it is. And I think comedians are extremely powerful. I think where comedy and poetry meet, that's a really special corner
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah. No, I love that example. And I feel like, even with that last poem, that you mentioned deportation and, I mean, these are, there's these themes come through
Right.
and you're not ignoring the reality that we're all living in right now in this country. But
Yeah.
yet it's like, people might expect a poet to who's wanting to address those issues to not include humor or not have this sort of more imaginative or, not use all the tools available to you, which you do.
Yeah, I think especially with that last poem, that one is autobiographical, and I'm talking about an experience from over a decade ago. Where I was just another kid in a class, and everybody got assigned different things, and that was just what was assigned to me
Yeah.
based on how I show up.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that speaks to kind of the overarching theme of
Yeah.
the issue with casting calls, with representation, and kind of the way I feel about our power as an industry and a place to potentially change that. I think that when people see things on TV, we're a world of screens, and
Yeah.
um, people are reading books less and less. People are reading the news less and less. They're getting their news and their thoughts and forming their ideas based on media.
Sure.
So when we're pumping out media and it's our industry, we should maybe be paying attention to what that media is communicating and saying about us and communicating to the rest of the world. I talk a lot about Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the Breaking Bad poet, but if there was
Yeah.
such a thing, I'd rather be the Taco Bell poet. But
I love your Taco Bell pump. We can talk about that in a minute.
yeah.
But I wanted to get back because, like, what's the last line in that poem you just read? That it's all pretend, isn't it, or something?
Yeah, we're okay, right? It's all just
It's all
pretend,
just
right?
pretend, and that's I think what you're getting at. That it's like, people say that, but just because something is fiction or it does have real world consequences. And
Absolutely.
if you're basing everything that you're doing on offensive stereotypes and you're putting out casting calls, like you have these, I don't know if these are real
A lot of them are real.
phrases that are used, like we're looking for a spicy Latina or this
Y-
kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah, that was
Um,
one that a friend had told me that somebody told her to put that on her resume or when she was sending emails.
yeah, and it's just like, I mean, I feel like aren't we past this? Aren't we? But no, I think the film and TV industry, even here in New Mexico, you think they might be more culturally sensitive.
Yeah,
Not always, I guess.
I spoke in the Breaking Bad class also at UNM, and there was a guest speaker who was on the show, and we had a conversation in front of the students also about his experience. He played somebody who was a friend of Tuco's, and Tuco's one of the drug dealers.
Yeah,
And he was speaking about, kind of the tension and the point that a lot of people meet me with. The challenge is that we want to be seen. We want to be able to have jobs and be in the forefront. But there's this compromise that happens where you're kind of asking, well, how? In what way?
yeah,
Um, and people are kind of okay with the stereotype or whatever's happening because the work is there. And for so
right.
long, it wasn't, or it was there in a way that was detrimental, even worse in the negative. So um, I understand that perspective, and I also really, really want to see things pushed a little further. I think we can
Yeah,
do a little better. When I was waiting for Eddington, that process was so long, and I just needed the money, and I just needed to make money for my trip. And I kept getting approached to do a project, and I was getting these emails specifically to me about playing a cartel maid.
mm,
But I don't believe that they looked at my pictures. I think it was just based on my name. And that's a problem.
right.
I did a presentation at UNM. This book is a sister to my thesis and eventually my dissertation. And I put the casting calls up on the screen. Um, and the pictures are so they're stereotypical when you see things that are like thugs and cholos and vatos, men of
Yeah,
Hispanic descent only. That is something I think we should be having a conversation about, and I think it's something that a lot of people might not be aware is happening because there's so many levels on a production and so many conversations. So I'm hoping to highlight it. I'm hoping we can begin the conversation.
yeah. I remember like when Orange is the New Black
Hmm.
came out, and that's been a while now, but I was, dating a woman who her mom was from Colombia, and she was very excited to see this character Flocka
Hmm.
on the show, who was really into like post-punk music and the Smiths, and she's like,
Yeah.
I never see like Latina characters who are like into this kind of music or have this kind of, that may seem like a small thing, but I think sometimes just like a little bit of kind of an unexpected kind of representation can be very powerful for people that feel like they haven't
Yeah,
seen someone who's kind of like them in some way.
absolutely. I think there are poems in the book about the Barbie movie, because seeing that movie with my mom was really special and transformative to see these a brown mother and daughter at the forefront, and it wasn't a story about that. It was just it was just them, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
I really saw my mom in America Ferrera's character. I really saw our relationship. That's not something that you can generally have without some kind of tragic story, some kind of, political grounding. And there are positives and negatives to that. But,
Yeah.
I think ultimately representation is much more powerful than we give it credit for. I think it was a buzzy thing for a few years and people got kind of tired. And obviously, there are many, many issues to solve in the world that are maybe not what's on TV, but what are we interacting with on the daily,
Yeah.
And what are we putting in our heads and in our young people's heads? Um, I think it is important. I think it is powerful. And I know that there are things that have empowered me and certainly changed my life in that vein. Flacco was definitely one of those moments.
Yeah.
I think I just saw I Love Boosters, and
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
character in that who is like a workers'
I love that
rights
movie so much.
Chicana.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, that's me.
Right, right,
I
right.
really felt what it feels like to see myself, which is, it's exceedingly rare,
Yeah, yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah.
I feel like in some ways you were kind of like an undercover agent
Yeah.
in the film and TV industry, and now this is like your report. And
Yeah.
they, the directors never, they had no idea like
Yeah.
that this kind of world-class poet happens to be there kind of
I think on Eddington, that's part of the reason why they called me in. But I think, I'm just speculating, but there were a few of us who had a callback with Ari Aster, the director, and with the casting directors and the producer, Lars. And I think they called me in just because they wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing. But, they did ask me about this background and
yeah.
stuff. I do really feel that I was brought on to that project because they were exceedingly aware of who I am and what I stand for, and they were really, really committed to the mission of that movie,
Yeah.
which
That
I
might
think.
be sorry, I didn't mean to cut
Oh,
you
no,
off.
no, go ahead.
Just I mean, it seems like that is kind of like a counterexample to everything we're talking about.
Yeah, I felt, there were a lot of ways because our characters in that film, the protesters are not the heroes. That's not, they could have described us a lot of ways in
Mhm.
those calls. They could have said a lot of things that they didn't say, and there was just kind of a base level description and the qualification that, like, hey, we want to see you if you've ever been in a protest before. And I think that made all the difference. I think that when you're looking at people's real life experience and not just a picture of them or
Right.
how they present, what their name is, that changes things when you care about their lived experience.
Yeah.
I felt very cared for in that way. And we had a rehearsal. We, kind of were collaborative in the process. Um, it was a really joyful experience. And I
Yeah.
think because I have that excellent example, I really, really want to give that to everyone else.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of telling the film industry to go away. It's
Right.
a matter of saying it's been here for a very long time and everything changes. And I think it's time for a little bit of change. And I saw it. It was really amazing. I would love for that to impact more people the way it impacted me.
Yeah. Do you think if the right role came along, you would want to like star in a film?
Maybe. I mean, I have a lot of crazy stories about my life. I could see myself writing like a Mindy Kaling
Oh yeah.
episodic about, all kinds of crazy stuff. But I love performing. I think my career's taking this interesting pivot with this book and this moment.
Yeah.
I'm getting a PhD in Chicano studies
Right.
pursuing, so I'll be in my last year of my master's degree, and I'm really passionate about teaching. But I think artists are really Renaissance people, so we hold many jobs at once, and I could certainly be movie star professor. I wouldn't be opposed. I also could really see myself being involved in a political space
Yeah.
with this kind of stuff that we're talking about here. And I know that there's a lot of change happening in our state currently. It's positive. I know a lot of good people who are working to make that change and who have been doing that long before me.
Right.
but that's a table I could see myself sitting at as well. And I think, the movie star stuff is really cool. But I'd really love to make other people movie stars, people who deserve it, who are kind of sitting here looking at these casting calls the same way I am and feeling
Yeah.
discouraged.
Yeah. And you're working on, like, you want to make a change in the film and TV industry, right? Or you're kind of working on
Yeah.
something in that area now?
Yeah, so right now, I'm working toward building a petition for racially insensitive language to be removed from casting calls. I have other examples that are casting calls that regard other races of people and other people from other walks of life, and it's all very politically correct language if it's ever referencing their race. And for some reason, when it comes to us and the people who live here, we're a little behind in that curve. So I'd like to start the conversation. I'm planning to have the paperwork for the petition at my book release on July 11th at the launch pad. So people will be able to sign that at the book signing table. And when I graduate with my thesis, going into my PhD, I'll be hoping to go to the legislative session with that petition.
Yeah, great. And again, July 11th
Yeah.
at Launchpad,
hmm
great venue, fun venue. If people are from Albuquerque, you know it.
Yeah.
Um, you'll be on stage, I guess, and there's the bar there, and right?
Yeah, so we've got live music. There will be the Asteroids are playing, they're a local band, and they've also got an acoustic duo that'll be playing. I've got some singers from Albuquerque Nuevo Teatro, a full bill of poets.
Yeah.
I'll be signing, I'll also be performing, and I'm performing in that venue because it is the last place that I performed with my mentor and friend, the late Andrea Gibson, who blurbed my last book and who I've opened for several times and who is a star of stars.
Yeah.
So I wanted to honor them there. We'll be honoring our own people who have passed in a special way. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be a really special afternoon.
I think so. It sounds like it'll be powerful, but but enjoyable for everyone as well,
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely this should come out before that so then people can know and come to that.
Yeah.
You mentioned teaching
Yes.
and you've taught poetry
Yes.
and there's a poem in the back of I think it's the last poem
Yes.
that first tell us, because this comes from a poetry exercise that you've done with your students. So talk a little bit about what that is and then why you decided to go back to an exercise that's been around for a long time and that you've done many times that is kind of almost like Poetry 101,
Yeah.
but to go back to that now as a more mature poet.
Sure. So I've taught workshops all over the country. I was a teaching artist in New York for about a year in different middle schools and high schools. I've taught all over New Mexico. I love to go to my dad's classes. My dad's been a public school teacher my whole life. And when you're working with people who don't consider themselves poets, it's nice to give parameters. So we'll use form, which, in elementary school, everyone encounters form. We encounter haikus and quatrains
Right.
and all this kind of stuff. In poetry, you can also do a thing where you're saying a poem is after another poet or after another poem, and you're kind of using their format that they created. So the format is called Where I'm From. It's by a poet named George Ella Lyon, which I believe is from the 20s or 30s. And you're just repeating I'm from over and over again. And the idea is to get more abstract as you continue repeating it. So it's kind of an easy entry level exercise, and it turns people into poets. They don't realize that they are, but then they start kind of thinking in a weird way about how to answer that question. And the next thing you know, you have something really stunning, really beautiful.
Yeah.
Young people do it. I've seen my parents do it. I've had, virtually everyone in my life has written a Where I'm From poem. And when I teach it, I'll give the 10 or 15 minutes to write it. And sometimes I'll write one. Sometimes I won't because I've been doing it for so long. But I ended up writing one that really kind of stuck with me in one of my dad's classes. And I wanted to end the book with it to say, we should maybe think about going back to the beginning. Think about what was here at the very beginning. What stories do we need to tell that are the roots? Where are we from? And I
Yeah.
think we can do that in our work as artists. I think we can do that in film and TV. I think we can do that as residents of our state, country, world. Remember where we started and implement that where we are now. Not lose sight of it. So it's a poem about Albuquerque.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
before you read it, I just want to say I feel like that question, where are you from, can be a very offensive question.
Yeah.
That, because sometimes the way it's asked, and it's usually not asked of me as a white man, although it has been when I was
Sure.
I was in college in upstate New York, and I was at a local diner, and the people working at the diner, have grown, lived their whole lives in this small town. And I was there with, me and my friends, and they're like, where are you all from? And I was like, oh, I'm from Florida. And they're like, you're from America? Yeah, they thought I was like from Europe or something. I don't know, for some reason. But, it's normally a question, that BIPOC people, non-white people would get.
Yeah.
And the implication is that like, oh, you can't be American or no.
Right.
And so I think that that's kind of, there's something of that in the question. But then like when you think about, well, where am I from? What is, and like, well, I'm from Albuquerque. It's where I live now.
Yeah.
I'm from Florida. That's where I was born.
Right.
Well, I'm from New York. I used to live there. I'm from, and then where am I from culturally? Where am I from, what are my philosophical or religious beliefs or
there's a term for this in Chicano studies called querencia. So your querencia is kind of that feeling of whatever that is, that home, that cultural home, that spiritual home, where you make your querencia. And where I'm from as a poem is kind of an intersection of all those things.
Yeah.
Because you can say that you're from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you can also say you're from your mother's laugh, or you're from, the house you grew up in, or whatever it might be. And I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about the form. It surprises me even still. But I think it's important to, really, it's querencia. I think that's the important thing. And I think that with our representation in the industry and the challenges we're facing with jobs and what's getting taken away and what's still being built, querencia is not a bad place to return to.
Yeah. Well, that's very beautiful. And with that, let's hear the poem. Thank you.
It's called Where I'm From. I'm from a land with no definition beyond its own abundance, enchantment, and incomprehensible magic. I'm from watermelon mountains and yellow, purple, orange sunsets, some real children's book illustration stuff, on display for postcards and painters, amateur Instagram photographers clicking at the watercolor of it saying, this would have done numbers in 2010. I'm from the Frontier restaurant when they open, Golden Pride for lunch, the Frontier again at night, my table in the John Wayne room always waiting for me. I'm from all the bad burritos and tamales I rolled before a boy taught me how to use rolling papers. Part of me wishes there was a rolling machine for tortillas. I'm from the lowriders I was never cool enough to claim, the hoops I was never chola enough to pull off, the Spanish that didn't want to hang out in my mouth. I'm from the ancestors who pat me on the back, affirming, mija, everything you are is more than enough. The same voices who helped me measure spices for family recipes solely based on vibes, all this and more. I'm from the land of mañana, which can only mean that everything I know and love remains endless.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here. I've really enjoyed this. I think it's an honor, and congratulations on the new book.
Thank you for having me, Logan, and really thank you everybody for listening.